Hello. Maybe you remember quiz number 2 that you took in class. Quiz number 2 was not good. Only 4 people in the class got a passing score. So that means most people need to go back, watch my videos again, read the information again, take the practices again, okay? So I'm going to go through some of the problems here, and you can decide which parts you really need to review. My question for my first picture was, how full are the glasses? I ask you to make 3 sentences, and we're going to use as for all of them. So remember, as means the same. So which pictures are the same? 1 and 2, right? So we're going to say glass 1 is as full as glass 2. Most people did pretty well with that, but just remember you need a capital, you need a verb, and you need a period, okay? Now we have not as. So if something is not as full, there's less, right? Which one has less? Number 3. So, glass 3 is not as full as. Now we could compare glass 3 to any of the other glasses, right? We could say glass 3 is not as full as glass 4. Glass 3 is not as full as glass 2. We have many choices, right? Then we have almost as. So not as is less, almost as is a little bit less. So which glass is a little bit less? Number 4, right? Compared to number 1 or number 2. So we would say glass 4 is not, is almost as full as glass 1. Or glass 4 is almost as full as glass 2. Both of those would be true. Remember, is the verb. Some people forgot is, and they said glass 4 almost. So you have to make sure that your sentence has a verb. So this part was the best for most people. So let's look at the more difficult ones. With the boxes, I ask you, how large are the boxes? So you're going to talk about size, right? In the directions here, I say, we're not going to use as. You're going to use these other choices, okay? ER, EST, more, less, and most, least. Okay. So if we're going to decide between ER and more, what do we need to think about? We need to think about the syllables. Okay. So large, large. How many syllables? 1, right? So are we going to say larger than, or are we going to say more large than? Those are our 2 possibilities. But we know we can't say more large than, right? Because with the 1-syllable adjectives, you can only say larger. Okay, so I'm going to use larger. Which ones are larger? We have many choices. Box A is larger than box B. Box C is larger than box D. So many different things we could say, right? But we can't say box, oh, sorry, I didn't put it in here, box A. We can't say box A is more larger. No, we have to choose ER or more. And we can only choose ER with the one-syllable adjectives. No more larger. We're going to take that out. Okay. So our next choice is about EST and most. So those are the two ways in English that we talk about the extreme, right? The top, the bottom, the largest, the smallest, right? So we have to choose again between EST and most. So are we going to say the largest, or are we going to say the most large? Again, with the one-syllable adjectives, we choose the top one, right? So we're not going to say the most large. That is not possible. So, if I look at all the boxes, what is the largest? A, right? So I will say box A is the largest. What about this sentence? Let's put these down so it's not confusing for you. Can I say box A is the largest than box B? Is that a good sentence? No. So remember when I say than, I'm comparing two things. That's when I'm going to use ER or more. For EST, the most, I'm comparing box A with all the boxes, not with one other box. So I'm going to stop here. If I want to say more, I could say box A is the largest of all the boxes, but I don't have to. So both of those sentences would work. So we talked about ER and more. We talked about EST and most. So let's look at the least and less. So we haven't talked about that option as much. Move these down. So less is when you're comparing two things, and least is when you are saying something is the most small, right? That makes sense. So we could talk about which boxes are less large. Does that sound funny to you, less large? You can say that. It has the same meaning as smaller. Okay, so you could use both of those. For example, box B is smaller than box A. Or you could say box B is less large than box A. That has the same meaning. If you like smaller, go ahead and use that, no problem. But if you want to use less, that's how you would do it, less large. Now, what you cannot do is say less larger. That's not possible. This is a cross-out situation. No, thank you. Okay? Why? Because ER means more, and less means down. So it doesn't make sense. Something is larger or it's smaller. Something is larger or it's less large. Okay. And then with the least, that's the opposite of the most. So the most is the highest. The least is the lowest. Mitzi, shh, shh, shh. My kiddo, stop. Sorry. So the least means the lowest. In this case, the least is going to mean the smallest. So you could say the least small or the smallest. They have the same meaning. So you can choose which one you like to use. So I'm going to say, which one is the smallest? E. So box E is the smallest. Or you could say, box E is the least large. Those have the same meaning. So let's move these so you can see all of your possible sentences. All right, let's move on to your last question. The last question talks about expensive. How expensive are the phones? Well, expensive, expensive. How many syllables? 3, right? So, are we going to say more expensive, or are we going to say expensiver? Are we going to say most expensive, or are we going to say expensivest? With the 3-syllable adjectives, your choice is clear, right? No ER, and no, oh, I should say EST. No EST. You can tell my computer's making it red, right? Because it's not possible. So if we're going to use more expensive, we could say phone A is more expensive than phone B. Or you could say phone C is more expensive than phone B. You have choices. How about most expensive? Since we're not going to say expensiver, we'll take that one out. Which phone is the most expensive? That's going to be phone C, right? So phone C. Phone C is the most expensive. Now remember, don't say more expensiver. That's too much. You have to choose more or ER, and we chose more. And we're not going to say most expensivest. No. We choose one. We choose most. I can just put my period here, or I can say the most expensive of the phones, or of all the phones. But I'm not going to say phone C is the most expensive than. No. When we use most or EST, there's no comparing two things. What other sentences could we make? We have many choices. You could use least expensive. Which phone is the least expensive? That would be phone B, right? Phone B is the least expensive. What else could we say? We could say less expensive. So for example, phone B is less expensive than phone A or phone B.